Okay, so for week 7 and 8, we're going to be progressing forward into the lifespan, and we're going to be looking at middle childhood. Some of the disorders that we're going to be talking about for the next couple of weeks in this module are autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, learning disorders. We're also going to look at some mental health disorders in week 8, such as anxiety disorder, and then some social and mood disorders. We're really just looking at how these different disabilities and disorders can impact a child's ability to function, mainly in school. School achievement is a huge thing because in middle childhood, the majority of a child's day is spent in school. So specifically, OTs and physios would be focused on access to the curriculum in the school environment. So we could be looking at things like physical access, such as the physical environment. So how is that child mobilizing around the classroom? How is that child sitting at their desk? We talked about this in the last module. We'd also be looking at how they're accessing written output. So again, the handwriting piece, the cursive writing, the keyboarding skills, that comes into play certainly in middle childhood. But we are also looking at how a child accesses the gym environment, an art class. So all of those kind of activities are key in middle childhood. And then another key aspect, certainly for occupational therapists, is to look at self-regulation. And when it comes to self-regulation, we're talking really about there's the sensory component of self-regulation, so how the nervous system is organized and prepared for sensory information. And then there's also the emotional regulation. So what we want to make sure is that children are in that the best state or the right state for learning. That's always my priority as an OT working in schools, because if I'm going to look at a child's fine motor skills, or how they are, accessing the curriculum, I'm not going to be able to be successful with a printing program or a fine motor program, and the physiotherapist certainly isn't going to be successful with a gross motor program if that child is dysregulated. So if they're not able to be in that just right state for learning, or just right state for accessing the gym or art class, then I'm not going to get anywhere. So I'm always going to address self-regulation first, because I need that kid to be organized. I need their nervous system to be in that optimal state for learning before I can make any progress or have any success in any other areas. And certainly for OTAs and PTAs coming into the school to provide an OT and physio program, that is something that they're going to be assisting us with as well. So we might have the physiotherapist coming in to assign a gross motor program for our children. They could be, again, working on trunk control, bouncing on a ball, using a peanut ball, working on balance and motor planning and coordination skills. So the physiotherapist is going to assign those exercises for the OTA, PTA to complete, but the OT is going to be asking the OTA, PTA to possibly do those in a particular order, because what we want to make sure is that we'll have some kids that are kind of low registration. So that means they're kind of zoned out, or they are, not engaged and focused. They could have really kind of low tone and low affect, and just kind of low registration. So not really engaged and alert. So we might ask the OTA, PTA, or the educational assistant to complete some alerting activities. So we want to get that nervous system from kind of a low energy state. We want to raise that up and alert their nervous system, or arouse their nervous system, so that they are engaged and focused and able to complete the tasks that we're asking. So we might ask them to do things such as bounce on a ball, jump on a trampoline, do some jumping jacks. We're going to ask them to do a lot of those alerting type activities first. And some other alerting activities that don't even involve gross motor skills could be drinking water with ice, or water with lemons, chewing sour foods. It could be listening to upbeat music, doing anything that's a little bit off rhythm. That will kind of wake up a nervous system. But the thing is that some kids have a very short window and some kids have a big window. So we have lots of activities that we could do before they get to that threshold where they start to get a little bit overstimulated. Or some kids actually have a really narrow window, so it actually doesn't take very much before you'll see them start to get silly and escalated, overexcited. And so once they get into that kind of hyper aroused state, we need to make sure that we're putting in calming, grounding, deep pressure activities. So we want those alerting activities. Anything that's going to target the vestibular system is a great way to do that. And if we think about the cerebellum, the vestibular pathways run through the cerebellum of the brain. So anything that's going to give them linear vestibular movement or anything where they're going to be putting their head upside down is going to wake up their nervous system. But then we need to pair it with calming, organizing, deep pressure activities to the joints to give them that proprioception to calm them down so that they aren't over aroused and overexcited, because then we're also going to lose them, and then we're not going to get effective output from them from a motor perspective or a written output perspective or a self-care perspective. So we really want to be looking at that self-regulation piece as a priority, and also the access piece. Those are going to be some major ones when it comes to middle childhood and what an OTA or PTA could be asked to do.